Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Enhancing Trauma Awareness Podcast. This is going to be a space where we're going to share personally and professionally experiences to expand on the topics of enhancing trauma awareness and the principles, what we call ICAPS, right? Information, concepts, approaches, principles, and skills.
And at Lakeside, we're often engaged in discussions like the ones you're going to hear in this podcast series. But I'll be honest, recording this discussion, it's very new for the three of us. So while we are excited, it is great to be together in this space. It's also a little nerve-wracking. We've got our nerves going. So maybe you're feeling something similar as you work through the course. All three of us sitting here today have sat in your seats as participants. And just like you, we know how it can feel to begin this journey.
So in today's episode, we will introduce ourselves and talk about the importance of using intentional and neutral terms when talking about trauma and its impact. So we're going to invite you to take care of yourself by find a comfortable chair to sit and also take breaks when needed.
I'm going to get it going. I'm Sarah Liz. I have been with Lakeside working here as a trainer and administrative in leadership and supervision since 2016. I started classes in 2008. I feel like I'm a young one compared to y'all. You've been here, the OGs. Again, my name's Sarah Liz. My pronouns are she, her, they, them. And I get to work with these two lovely individuals as co-supervisors, part of the leadership team for LGI.
Okay. Well, OG is speaking right now. Thank you very much. So my name is Kathleen Stith-Watkins, and I have been with Lakeside IFP. I believe I started taking classes in 2003. So I've taken every course that they have ever created. And at this point, I'm a trainer as well as a supervisor. My pronoun is she and her. And I'm delighted to work with all the folks that are sitting before me.
My name is Michelle Machado. My role here is now an assistant program director. Although I think I've had almost every role here, and we started as trainers. Actually, we started as participants. And so my pronouns are she and her. I have been here 22 years because I date them by my children, as everyone knows. My children now are 24 and 2. And when I first started as a participant, they were 2 and not even born. So I do have a story, maybe in another time we can talk about that, of myself being in class 4 centimeters pregnant because I loved it so much. But that, a little bit about me. So I often think when I'm here, my children are here, my family are here as well. So it's really nice being with both of you. So, man, we could talk about so much. I think just sitting here all the years that we've had together. But I think we should start with basics of just understanding the importance of language and our word that we use all the time, intentionality, right? We say that almost every single day. So when we think about all of our courses, especially enhancing trauma awareness, we really do start about the importance of using intentional language and also neutral language when we're thinking about trauma. So I think we should start there. I think that's going to center everything that we talk about. And so why don't we just talk about when we first learned it? Because Kathleen, we were in the same class together. We've been in every single class together. But I can remember when I first heard it, and I'll talk about that, but I love to hear about when you first heard, first person language and a person with trauma impacted, that evolution.
So one of the things that I think about is immersed in all of it and what we call the pads. was the hopefulness in taking the course and in the intentionality. And there is, with the language being neutral, lies a hope, is how I see that. I was taken back by the term, if I could say it that way. And I remember thinking about, well, wait a minute, sometimes some people might feel like they're victims and or survivors. But in this course, and how things are framed, it is framed in a neutral manner, which is so important. So it kind of takes you back and say, okay, they're embracing who I am, where I am, and this is what's going on right here.
I remember getting so detailed, like in those sessions, from learning it, from teaching it, but getting so detailed of like knowing there's a difference between survivor, victim, and then that kind of all-encompassing, to me, the person impacted by trauma, right? It's people identify with different terms, like you were saying. But I remember someone in a course, saying, I work in victim services and I'm learning, like I want to change my language, but what do we do about this title? I just think it's really interesting. And I know for me, learning person first, it was pretty innate because that's what I was taught in college, is kind of what the language was when I was coming through the classes. So it was like, this is really natural. Thank you for giving me the words to be really neutral and really inclusive.
I mean, do any of you remember, because I know I'm going back to 2003, but initially we used to have the acronym TIP, which is trauma impacted person. Right. And that even changed. Like I remember saying that, and then we became even more sensitive, right? We can say we put our trauma lens a little bit and got clear and said, wait a minute, we want first person language. And that's when we started saying person impacted by trauma. I think it went across everything because it wasn't just trauma, it was person with autism, person with intellectual disabilities. So I almost see how that felt for me, because even the trauma impacted person, the TIP, we were like, something's not right. And I remember even in our evolution of writing, we were like, no, we've got to change everything. That makes more sense. And then I even felt like I have trauma. I'm not a trauma impacted person. I could even take it even further. There was an episode recently where someone said trauma affected person, AFFECTED. I was like, what is this? I'm like, I'm not affected with something. And I was trying to tell them, please, can we do person impacted by trauma? And I realized it's just, they didn't understand. And yet I was like, oh my God, this doesn't feel right.
It's so humanizing, I think, to put the person first. And I think that's what I came through learning about through the disability lens. So it was always person first. Not always, I'll say. When I was coming into school and learning, it was always person first. And so again, it felt natural in that sense, but I watch it. Maybe I came in right at that evolutionary change, how language is always evolving, especially within LGI, that shift, especially with our acronyms already kind of in place, the tip to the PIT, the person impacted by trauma. Yeah, I was like, this is backwards. So it straightened out and we got going. But I think, and even how things evolve from there, and I will continue to evolve. But it just feels really humanizing to me to put the person first whenever possible.
As the language shifted, I find myself pausing for a minute to make sure that I'm using the right neutral language. So let me just pause a minute before I open up my mouth. And the other piece I think about is considering the concept of the whole person. Because we might be struggling on one end, and another end, we're doing pretty good. So seeing the whole person, often sometimes systems shames a person. And I think that this language frees a person.
Yeah. Yeah, when we talk about like what are the positives, I know for me, it helped me not to label that person, right? It's what had happened to them. It's what they experienced. So it's a person who has experienced trauma. And that changed everything. I used to watch people in classes, their faces light up because even, like you said earlier, Sarah Liz, even in the title of someone, they'll say victim advocate and the person's like, I'm a victim. It almost doesn't give them the capability or the hope to be something different. Like, no, that's not me. I am a person with something that has happened to me. I'm a person with. I think that changes the game.
And still leaves space because folks want to use the language that fits best for them at some point. But as kind of at that point, at least leaders in the field of talking about trauma, I think it was really significant to have that shift occur. I think too, it's like the pause is so important, Kathleen, like having that pause to let your brain and your mouth like form the words and get them in the order that really is most impactful.
It makes me also think about as we're teaching the course and people are getting the information, the concepts, the approaches, principles, and skills, people start to become more trauma aware or trauma sensitive as they gain more information. And so it just, people start to see. So often people come in the class and say, well, I'm taking the class because of my job. But very often, through the course, one's eyes is open because of the trauma lens, and then they become to say, well, wait a minute, I thought it was for other folks, but as I'm learning this information, I see some of this in me.
Well, it's all of us, right? I was smiling a little bit just because you said in our course, I'm like, there it is, enhancing trauma awareness, right? We're becoming more sensitive to our language. We're more sensitive about how we are talking with each other, how someone is being impacted by it. And I think that's why we use the word so much, person impacted by trauma. So yeah, it makes a huge difference. Even in myself, I'm like, ooh, that feels good, right? So how can it not feel good to someone else? Why wouldn't I want someone else to feel that?
I just think of all the different ways that if we've talked about, kind of label or even diagnose and just kind of form assumptions based off of someone's label, and to be able to put the person first over and over and over again in our language just kind of retrains the brain even to think about it differently.
I mean, that's what's so challenging, though. When I said earlier, when I'm hearing somebody say other words, that is challenging because I know the impact. We know the impact. You don't want to have or anyone else to feel that. And I think that is what's challenging in our times. That's why we always want everyone to have this, right? Everyone to really be able to have these kind of conversations to say, that impacted me this way. And I think that's hard for people to even be able to understand that for themselves. They may not even realize. They might listen and be like, I didn't even know that. But yes, that feels crappy inside of me. That's not who I am.
There's another side to that as well, because we've had times when someone has said, no, I'm a survivor. And then our response is, I hear what you're saying. We're going to use this terminology. And very often, by the end of the course, the person then will come back and say, I now understand why you prefer to use neutral language with this.
So just you being kind and walking them through their journey, which we always talk about too, right? Meeting them where they're at.
Meeting them where they're at. You're right.
So just after we have been talking about this, I know for me, a lot goes on in my body. So I think it would be really helpful that we do an exercise. I know this is one that we have done together before, but I'm going to adapt it today because I'm feeling a little bit that we need in this space, especially since we've been talking about neutral first-person language and what that does for ourselves and how it felt when people weren't using it. This comes from The Inner Work of Racial Justice by Rhonda V. McGee. It's one of these books that have mindful exercises in there, and one of them is practicing the pause. So again, I'm going to adapt it from this book, and I hope that it helps everyone, including myself. So it says here, and I want to tie it to the fact that we're asking to take the pause. We've said that, I heard numerous times throughout here, in taking the pause and really feeling what may be going on for yourselves when you hear first person language, or even when you don't. So if you're saying someone, a person impacted by trauma or something different. So I want us just for a moment to just stop and to check in with ourselves, check in with yourself and what it was like for you when we were talking about this, when you were hearing this. And so I often say just to put your feet firmly on the ground, to have a gaze, to be comfortable in the space that you are in right now, and to really feel any emotions that come up for you that you just heard. And I'm doing that for myself as well. Where in your body are you feeling these emotions? And what are any of the thoughts, the questions, and other reactions you're noticing right now? And so this practicing the pause really means that it's an embodied practice that Rhonda McGee calls the pause. And she often says just to breathe naturally, and that it's one aspect of practicing mindfulness meditation. So in practicing this, I'm going to just ask you just to simply stop what you're doing and intentionally bring your awareness to the experience of this present moment, and to pause and intentionally direct your attention to any particular vocal point that may help you right now. And so for me, it's just a gaze in front of me. And I often picture my feet in the sand and the coolness and a haze of the sunshine over my eyes. And in this pause, just for a minute, you turn your sensations to your breathing in and out, and just resting here. And thinking about what thoughts are coming up in your mind right now. And see if you can release that. And release those thoughts. And just bringing your sensations to the notice of your breathing. And in that, you're just pausing and allowing your thoughts to be. And it's said for this pause that it does minimize any possible trauma-based reactions that may be in your body. And that it clarifies the mind. And it's a micro practice of letting go. And allows you to come back to the resources of peace within you. So if you can release that gaze, I'm coming back to be present with both you and Sarah Liz, and those that are joining us. That feels good. Didn't realize how much I needed that.
Well, as we wrap up for today, we want to invite you to practice the pause, as we just did here and in your own way, to notice your self-talk and to really be kind to yourself.
And so, until the next time, everybody take care.